So Forest's chances of getting into the Europa League are actually looking a lot stronger. Welcome to your Forest news. Good morning, good evening, or good night. Hope you guys are doing well, and welcome to your latest Forest news. Coming up, I'm going to take you through the latest developments in this Crystal Palace case, what it means for Forest potentially, and is it actually quite feasible now that Forest will be upgraded from the Conference League to the Europa League? So if you're enjoying the content, please don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed as well if you are new, and let's jump into this. So we were talking about this, it kind of broke just as we were going live on Grumpy Old Reds, and I didn't really have I was kind of reading the article on the fly on air and kind of going through it with the boys and you guys in the chat. And I've had some time to sit down, read through it, and I actually am starting to think that Crystal Palace are running out of, what's the right word here, avenues or trapdoors maybe, to keep themselves in the Europa League. My kind of summary of this would be that as things stands, technically Palace are not qualified for the Europa League. And they have to qualify themselves into it. Now, obviously that's not officially the case, but as the law stands, they can't have Lyon and Palace in the same competition. So that is causing them a headache. And the moves Palace are making, and especially John Textor, who's been a great friend to Forest, he might be an even bigger friend if he gets us Europa League, in these last couple of days since they're hearing, feel quite panicky to me, if I'm being honest with you. So what he's tried to do is put his shares in a blind trust, like Marinakis did with Forest shares. But of course, Marinakis hit the deadline, and Textor is way past the deadline. So that wasn't accepted by UEFA. And now his other options are a case of selling his shares completely, maybe to Parish, and then saying, well, I'm no longer part of this problem. It's got nothing to do with me. Therefore, you can't kick Palace out. I only own Lyon and Botafogo now. It's very unlikely that he can get that done in the time frame that's remaining. And then thirdly, is arguing the lack of influence or no influence he's meant to be having at Crystal Palace. And it's going to be very hard for him to do that because, as we'll show you in the article in just a second, he was part of the influence, if you like, that brought Oliver Glasner into Crystal Palace. So something that I brought up to you 2 weeks ago, which at the time felt like, yeah, this would be hilarious if Forest did, poor Palace and what have you, is now looking more and more serious and more likely that it could actually come off. So let's go and run through this article and we'll kind of stop on the key points with it. So let's bring that up for you guys now. So it says here, if I turn my attention to it, and we won't go through the whole thing, it's quite a long article, but we'll pick out the key points here. Crystal Palace Europa League place in doubt after UEFA reject owner's blind trust move. And it starts with UEFA's rejected the offers from Crystal Palace shareholder John Textor and David Blitzer to put their shares in a blind trust to ensure the club can compete in Europe next season. Palace participation in the Europa League has been cast into doubt as the club's largest shareholder, Textor, is also the majority owner of Lyon. So all this is kind of talking about the background stuff. We don't need to go over the same thing. So when they met with UEFA officials on Tuesday, they tried to broker a solution without reaching an agreement. The Guardian has learned that the so-called blind trust option, in which Textor's Palace shares would be placed in the hands of a trustee next season, were rejected by UEFA as the club missed the deadline for registering the trust. So it sounds like even within that meeting that we told you about that was happening on Tuesday, they had that discussion there and it was flat out rejected during that meeting. Goes on to say about the usual stuff, Man City, Man U, Forest, etc. have a similar set of rules. So then it says, however, UEFA rules state that such ownership changes must take place before the 1st of March, which is what Marinakis did. And Palace are in danger of paying a heavy price for their lack of foresight, leading to considerable frustrations at UEFA's lack of flexibility. Now, what's interesting as well, I don't think it says it in this article, but we mentioned it on Grumpy Old Reds yesterday, was there was this whole blasé approach to Crystal Palace in the FA Cup. You know, even when they beat Aston Villa, there was still a couple of days before the deadline cutoff where Textor could have registered his blind trust. Now, I'm assuming it doesn't take that long, but I would assume that he at least took, you know, the first steps towards doing it, and maybe it needed rubber stamping once they'd beaten Villa in the semis. But no, it doesn't seem that that happened. So what I said to you earlier about the fact that his options now seem limited to either selling his stakes in the club or proving that he has no influence in the club. My gut feeling says he can't do either, but I just want to take you to that part of the article which is here. It says, with a quick sale and transfer of shares seeming off the table, the guys in the Guardian also think that's not a possibility. Palace's best hope of playing in the Europa League for the first time appears to be persuading UEFA that Textor has no influence at Selhurst Park. Although this may be not straightforward. In addition to his 45% stake, Textor has a 25 equal voting rights with Parish, Blitzer and Harris, and is known to have played a key role in the appointment of the manager Oliver Glasner last year. Textor has declined to comment. Now, Textor was very mouthy coming out of the meeting on Tuesday and felt the need that he could, you know, hype it up and do his PR spin on it. Now he's gone very, very quiet about it. And I think this Glasner appointment is the thing they're going to struggle with, because if they could have shown maybe a clean track record for the last 12 to 18 months or 2 years or whatever it is, I don't know how long he's been at Palace, excuse me, then maybe they could have argued, look, he was shareholder by name, a silent partner, words to that effect. But the fact that he technically has the biggest share in Palace and he has equal voting rights to the other three that are in there, I think they're going to heavily struggle with this. So UEFA rules make it clear that the influence of two clubs in the same competition is prohibited. No one may simultaneously be involved in any capacity whatsoever in the management, administration and or sporting performance of more than one club participating in a UEFA club competition, the rules state. So that's key, those key words there. Administration, management, sporting performance. He's had an involvement with Glasner in those in those kind of criteria, therefore doesn't or won't be able, in my opinion, to justify it. And then a couple more things to run you through. No individual or legal entity may have control or influence over more than one club participating in a UEFA competition, including holding a majority of the shareholders' voting rights, having the right to appoint or remove a majority of the members of the administrative, management or supervisory bodies of the club, which is what, as I mentioned, he was involved in with Glasner. Where did I get to? Or being able to exercise by any means a decisive influence in the decision making of the club. So these are all very hard things for him to disprove, if you like, on how he's not been involved or hasn't been involved. Now, he may argue, oh, at the time I was trying to buy Everton, and that was the reason why I had no involvement in Palace, and then that whole Everton thing fell through. And then again, it goes on just to mention that Forest will take over if that happens. Excuse me. So, the question now really is, guys, will Palace get this over the line? I'll remind you again, the cut-off date for this is on the 17th. And when I say cut-off, that's the absolute latest, because that's when technically the Europa League competition starts, draws are made, first rounds are played, etc., etc. So this has to be resolved quite quickly. I think they need to resolve this in the next 7 days. And if they do, the interesting question will be, will Forest and Brighton, because Brighton are impacted by this, appeal any decisions that happened if Palace, for example, are able to prove that they could play? And can you imagine if Palace did get in and they drew Lyon in one of the games. That would be absolutely hilarious. Look, my stance on this hasn't changed too much, if I'm being honest with you. Yes, I know the argument for the fact that Forest would be moving up and could potentially attract, you know, better players to the club this summer if we do get Europa. I just feel on a technical side, this is very harsh on Palace, but the rules are the rules. Look, will I lose any sleep if we scumbag Palace out of that position and they end up out of Europe completely? No, is the honest answer. Will I feel sorry for the likes of Rich and D and everyone else? Yes, I will. But you know what? We've seen plenty of times that Forest have been screwed over, be it in the Premier League and the Championship, etc. We've seen plenty of those times that have happened. So something going our way, I'll take it. Yes, it'll leave a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth, but I'll be able to mouthwash that out once I see the draw in the Europa League. So we'll keep you posted as soon as we know the outcome, but this is the latest update on it. So get your thoughts into the comments down below. If you haven't already, please don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed as well if you are new, and we'll see you on the next video. Come on, you Reds.